today's video, I'm going to cover the whole entire market in terms of Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and S&P 500, including the economic calendar. Now, I do post these videos daily, so I highly encourage you to double check the latest video on my channel so that way you get the most up-to-date information. And before I get to the technical analysis portion, I'm going to go over the economic calendar. And for Friday, August 23rd, 2024, at 10 a.m., we have Fed Chair Jerome Powell's speech at Jackson Hole Retreat. This is important because it will dictate more of the rate cuts moving forward. For the most part, not necessarily a clear indication exactly, but more of a better picture for the most part. Again, the market is expecting a rate cut in September, whether it be 25 or 50 basis points. And at 10 a.m., we have new home sales as well. Previously, it was 617,000. Expectations about 620,000, so an increase. Now, if we get to the economic calendar or the technical analysis portion, the markets is, for the most part, in terms of based off MAC lines, somewhat indicating an upside, but at the same time, I would say it's more of a 50-50 split, just because, again, more anticipation for Jerome Powell's speech. Again, the market is expecting a rate cut in September, but it's more deciding on if it's 25 or 50 basis points. Again, it's not guaranteed that the rate cut will happen, but again, more clear indications will be presented during Jerome Powell's speech at 10 a.m. Now, for S&P 500, if we're looking at ETF SPY, which is S&P ETF for S&P 500, it closed at $556.22. Pre-market is at $559.88 currently. And in terms of the upside, in my opinion, if the market takes what Jerome Powell says favorably, we'll be going up to the all-time highs, which is about $564 and some change. And if you're looking at the pre-market and after hours in terms of the previous all-time high, you're looking at $565 and some change. Now, we did come down to the support level that I mentioned in the previous video about the 555 and some change. And if the market is not favorable to what he states, then we'll see the 555 and some change tested again. But in my opinion, it depends. If it's just minor and the market gets essentially the 25 basis points and slow rate cuts moving forward, so on and so forth, kind of thing, more indications to that. Not clear indications, but just subtle hints that the market takes as a narrative towards those directions, then the 555 could potentially hold for the downside. But if the market seems like what Jerome Powell stated is not ideal and favorable, then we could potentially drop down to these lower levels, which I think would hold in my opinion. So the first level would be 550 and some change, but essentially, potentially, in my opinion, we'll see the 548 and some change. Could we go lower than that? We could, obviously, and we could go lower, but the problem is I don't expect it to see that, just because, again, we have NVIDIA earnings coming up, and they're expected to beat earnings, and that is next week. It is a mega cap stock, so it could move the market forward, not forward, but more to the upside. But in my opinion, if we were to go lower, this level would hold for sure. We saw a lot of consolidation support for the most part, plus the moving averages collide within this zone. So you're looking at potentially support at the 542 and some change, somewhere between 544 and some change with the moving average, and then 542 and some change with the horizontal support. Will we see that? In my opinion, I don't think so, just because, again, the market is more to the upside. Plus, we are, in my opinion, getting the rate cuts. Because Jerome Powell stated 2 times previously out of the 5 talks I think he had, that the next decision, if it was in his opinion, would be most likely a rate cut versus a rate increase. And because the market and from the Fed meeting minutes, so on and so forth, rate cut I think is coming in September, in my opinion. Plus, the only thing that the market's deciding is whether 25 or 50 basis points, and whether the rate cuts will be coming more rapidly based off how Jerome Powell and the Fed speaks, so on and so forth, moving forward, right? So there's that. Now, if you're looking at ETF QQQ, which is an ETF for Nasdaq, so basically same thing, just different ratio. We saw basically a bounce off the support level that I mentioned as well. And mind you, closed at $474.85. Pre-market's $479.46. And essentially same thing. If you're new to the channel, this line significant is basically an upward trend support / resistance level dating back since 2010. So just to visually show you, just in case you're new to the channel, this is since 2010. Mind you, the market was still going up. It doesn't mean that it's not going up, but it's been staying underneath it since 2010. Did break through since 2022, and then went back underneath it and had issues passing it once again. Did pass it recently. There's too many lines, I understand, sorry about that, but it broke through right about here. It came back underneath, and then we've had issues passing it. Technically, false breakouts here and there could be a result of my not perfect lines potentially. But if we go to the upside, we could potentially have issues at the 483 and some change. But I expect false breakouts as well, so 485 and some change. But essentially, potentially getting capped at the zone within this resistance line, but 487 to 488 and some change, counting for false breakouts. Can we go higher? Obviously, we can. In my opinion, if the market gets too excited, we could hit the 490 and some change. The reason why I could expect that happening is potentially if Jerome Powell states that, not states, but more indicates that the 50 basis points most likely could happen through his words, not necessarily directly saying it, and that more rate cuts will be coming sooner rather than later. Again, he's not necessarily always direct. The way his narrative is always is, we'll assess the data as it comes in, kind of thing, right? But then for the downside, we could expect support again at the 474 and some change, based off the horizontal support level. And then the next level we could expect, because the Nasdaq does move a little bit more aggressive, we could drop down to 465 and some change based off of somewhat the moving average and the horizontal resistance at that zone. But in my opinion, more case if we were dropping that fast, we'd probably see the 460 and some change, more based off the consolidation support zone right about here. And that's for the Nasdaq / QQQ ETF. And then the next level, the next thing we're going to be looking at is the Dow Jones. Mind you, closed at 40,712 points. And we have upward trend resistance / potential support level dating back since 2021. So visually show right about here, 2021, upward trend resistance level. And then we do have a downward trend resistance level / more of a false breakouts recently. So I expect more breakouts anyway, regardless. And then the levels that we will be looking at resistance for the most part is about 41,000. And then if it is favorable in terms of the market, from what Jerome Powell stated, we'll most likely hit 41,200, and that could cause issues. And that could be enough for today. That is if it's more of the 25 basis points, in my opinion. If it's 50 basis points, I expect to test the all-time highs, which is about 41,000 and basically 41,400, right? That's for the most part. Now, if it's just at 25 basis points and the market's not taking it favorably in terms of potential more rate cuts coming sooner rather than later, we could potentially have support at the 40,600, but essentially have some issues breaking through the 41,000. You could say 41,450 points. And then if the market is completely going down based off of not favorable for the outcome, and it's about 40,200 points. That is based off the moving average right here, about here, and the consolidation bounce off support right about here. And I believe the highs get tested as well. No, okay. But yeah, the moving average, and then the second moving average, just in case you think it will drop down lower, is about 39,900 points. But I argue about 39,800 would be seen, because a quick drop like that would move the moving average down, plus a bounce off right about there at that previous level, which is about 39,800. So either 39,900 or 39,800. Can we go lower? Obviously, but I don't expect to go lower than that, again, because NVIDIA stock is a mega cap stock and expected to be earnings next week, so on and so forth, so pull up the market. But there's a good chance that even this level won't even be seen. As most likely it'll just be the 4,200, and that's it. 40,200, and that's it. But yeah, that's basically it for today's video. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. If you found it beneficial, consider dropping a like. It does help with the channel, so thanks so much for that. If you want to be notified when I do upload my next video, consider dropping, following and subscribing, so you'll be notified when I do upload it. And that's it. Thanks again for watching. Take care. God bless and peace.